Howdy, folks. Welcome to Six Gun City. Welcome to Tombstone, Arizona. Before we get started gunfighting, I've got a little bit of history for you. You know, it's been well over 130 years since a prospector named Ed Shefflin came to the area. Now, being a prospector, he didn't care a whole lot about fame, but he did like fortune. When he was in this area, he stayed at Fort Huachuca, the Army base, 22 miles south of here. Today, Fort Huachuca is America's oldest active military installation, established in 1877. Now, while I was over there at the Army base talking to those Army scouts about coming up into this area, they were concerned because of the Apache Indian activity up here. So they warned him straight up. They said, if you do indeed go up there, the only kind of a rock or stone you're likely to find will be your own tombstone. Well, luckily for us, Mr. Shefflin was a stubborn man. He did not heed those Army Scout warnings. He made several excursions up here looking for his minerals. Then one day, by grace of God or sheer luck or whatever you want to call it, he looked out on the desert and laying right on top of the ground was a silver vein, 8 inches wide by 12 feet long. Now, it was customary in those days to name your claim, so he decided to name it the Tombstone in honor of those Army Scout warnings. So the town grew up around the silver, but when this town was first established, it wasn't called Tombstone. That was just the silver mine. The original name for this town was Goose Flats. Goose Flats. Well, that name didn't stick around too long, thank God. In the 1870s, when Cochise County annexed the city, the miners all got together and they said, that's a stupid name. Decided to rename it Tombstone in honor of Mr. Shefflin and the silver. And I'm glad they did too, I'll tell you. I can't imagine Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer doing a movie called Goose Flats, can you? So the town grew up. By 1870, we boasted a population of 20,000 people. But truth be told, we don't know exactly how many people were here, because see, they thought differently back then. Sadly, to be part of the census, you had to be white, you had to be male, and you had to be an American. So there might have been 40 or 50,000 people here. We just don't know for sure. But what we do know is that Tombstone got very big. In fact, at one point, we're the largest city between St. Louis and San Francisco. Now, to give you an idea of just how big we got, Allen Street, the main street up here, at one point had 109 saloons on it. 109 saloons. I don't know about you folks, that's my idea of heaven. But it's also a recipe for disaster. I mean, think about it. You got 109 saloons on one street. Any given time, you got a few hundred drunk cowboys. All of them armed. You don't have to be a great mathematician, I don't think, to figure out the end result. It's chaos and mayhem. Now, on the subject of saloons, I've got a neat historical fact for you. Now, we've all either done it or heard it done, ordering a shot. Give me a shot of whiskey, give me a shot of schnapps, whatever. Now, before 1870s Tombstone, that was not part of the American lexicon. The term would have been dram. Give me a dram of whiskey. Now, how that came about was right up here on Allen Street. See, back then, the miners and the cowpokes and such, most of them got paid once a month. Well, just like today, come the end of the month, you're a little short of money. But whiskey was in high demand. Now, a dram of whiskey cost 18 cents. A 45 long hole cartridge, the most popular bullet of the day, cost 18 cents. So the saloon keepers up here on Allen Street started accepting one bullet for a dram of whiskey. So a patron would go in and put a bullet down on the bar and say, give me a shot's worth. Well, give me a shot's worth turned into, give me a shot, and that came down to us today. All that was conceived right up here on Allen Street. Now, as far as the red light district goes, that was big business here in Tombstone as well. The red light district started at the Birdcage Theater. It was 2 blocks wide by 8 blocks long. At one point, Tombstone had 3,400 registered ladies of the night. 3,400. Sounds like a hard place to hold on your paycheck, don't it? I use the term registered because you see, to be a lady of the night back then, you had to go to City Hall, pay a fee, and get a license. So yeah, Tombstone was making money off those shady ladies. Now, this town, first and foremost, was a mining camp. It was made possible due to the silver that lies in the ground. Today, Tombstone is Arizona's second largest tourist attraction, second only to that big ditch up north. But this town is still on the map today, thanks to bloodshed. You folks are all here today, thanks to bloodshed, which makes you twisted individuals, doesn't it? But that's okay, because I am too. Now, to give you an idea of the bloodshed that occurred here, we use the years 1876 to 1879. Now, if you compare that era to modern-day New York or Los Angeles, we did indeed have a higher murder rate. You know, I often tell folks that if I could get in a time machine and come back here, I wouldn't come back as an outlaw or a lawman. There's just no money in that. Truth be told, if I could come back, I'd come back as the Undertaker. Now, that guy was making some money. Tombstone supported 3 full-time undertakers, and that was unheard of. Most cities only had 1, and he was usually a part-timer. Now, on the subject of undertaking and such, if you have a jet, make sure you get up to Boot Hill. That's a good stop to make while you're here. Now, the Boot Hill you see today is much smaller than it originally was. At one point, it was so big that it was down as far as the Circle K gas station. They've sized it down for development purposes over the years. Now, while you're up there at Boot Hill, you're going to see a lot of unmarked graves. And that's because, unlike today, those folks back then didn't carry around identification. So if a man had come into town alone and get killed in one of our many gunfights that occurred here, and if he didn't have a letter from home or something to identify him, there was just not much they could do. So the funeral parlor started a new tradition where they would put a slab of ice out on the boardwalk. And they would just put the body out there for 2 or 3 days and let people walk around it. And hopefully somebody would identify him. If not, he got an unmarked grave, which is why you'll see so many of them up there. Now, a good way to see Boot Hill is to take the trolley ride. He'll give you a tour of the town, give you good history. He'll take you up there, drop you off, and then pick you up in 20 minutes. And 20 minutes is about enough time to see it and take pictures. And it's free to get in as well. Of all the shootings and killings that took place here, and there were a lot of them, the most famous, of course, was the gunfight at the OK Corral. But that gunfight didn't actually take place in the corral, but in a vacant lot behind it, at one point spilling out onto Fremont Street. That means you folks drove over the gunfight site coming into town. And fighting on Fremont Street was the original name for it. It wasn't until Hollywood changed it to the gunfight at the OK Corral in the 19th century. But over 30 shots were fired in less than a minute on 26 October 1881 at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. 3 men were killed. Or as a newspaper said so poetically the next day, they were hurled into eternity. Tom and Frank McLaury and Billy Clarence, dead. On the Earp side, 3 men were wounded. City Marshal Virgil Earp was brought down to one knee as a bullet went into his calf muscle. His younger brother, 31-year-old Morgan Earp, it looked like the hand of God, came down and slapped him as a bullet went into his shoulder blades. Then there was John Henry Holliday, better known as Doc Holliday. The movies don't show this, but he actually received a bullet in that gunfight. Hit him right in the hip area and ricocheted off his gun belt. Hurt him so bad he truly thought he was gut shot. And I don't blame him either. I can't imagine being hit with one of these. It's only 6 foot away just to have it ricochet off my gun belt. At the time, this was the most powerful handgun known to mankind. This will stop a horse. I guarantee it left a nasty bruise. So the only man to stand in that fight and not receive a bullet, and therefore sealing his fate as the most legendary lawman of Western history, was a fellow called Wyatt Earp. You folks heard of Wyatt Earp? Well, I hope so, or you're in the wrong town. That'd be like going to Disneyland and not knowing who Mickey Mouse is. So today, folks, we're going to do 5 historical reenactments, shootings and killings that took place here in Tombstone. As I said before, this town was made possible thanks to silver. But we're still on the map today, thanks to blood. Now that being said, who's ready to see a gunfight? All right, folks, let's get something straight right now. You are not in church. You are in a saloon in Tombstone, Arizona. So who's ready to see a gunfight? All right, put your hands together for the 6 Gun City players.
I heard that.